is the Rebel Author Podcast, where we talk about books, business, and occasionally bad words. Hello and welcome to the Rebel Author Podcast. Today is a bonus episode because it is Christmas Day. Happy Christmas, everybody. And joining me today for this special episode, because we're not running a normal episode, we're literally just going to run this as is. There's going to be no intro, no outro, just a bonus episode for you guys. So joining me today is the ever amazing Petra Tayler. Hello, Petra.
No, again.
I know. And I know. And I'm so nice. I'm not even going to make you give me a rebel story. I might at the end. I'm not sure. I won't, no, I promise.
This is not on my brief.
Is that because it's Christmas and I should have been mean to you?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we are going to talk about Kickstarter. So we did kind of an episode based on like Kickstarter as a whole, but we didn't really talk in too much detail about the Kickstarters that we're doing together. And because we have now run one full Kickstarter and we are just about at the fulfillment stage, we thought, and we are also in the process of setting up the next Kickstarter for the Girl Games trilogy. We thought it would be a great opportunity to actually go through the nitty gritty of what lessons that we have learned. So we've broken it down into mindset, marketing, and logistics, and we kind of chucked all our ideas together. So I think maybe before we begin, I'm going to ask you about Christmas because it is Christmas Day. So what do you do on Christmas Day? How do you run your Christmases? Because every family does it differently.
Yeah, I think it was one of those classic shocks that when you have a partner and you're like, hang on, are you a pajama family or are you a dressed up family? Because that is very important. And do you play board games? Because that's vital on my Christmas Day. So yeah, it has changed a bit now. I have a little boy, but it will be getting up at the crack of dawn.
Yeah.
And, yeah, with all the excitement of Father Christmas and opening all the stockings and all of that jazz. My husband is an excellent cook, so he will be on turkey and all of the trimmings. And yeah, we're a dress-up family. And I think Christmas Day for me is more like it's the culmination of the festive period. I'm more of a Christmas Eve person. I have more like traditions of like making cookies and watching Muppets Christmas Carol is usually my go-to on Christmas Eve. But yeah, it's usually board games and nice glass of something sparkly and good food and just, yeah, the chaos of Christmas with children, which is a joy.
I love that.
That sounded sarcastic. It wasn't.
No, I love that.
How about you? What's yours?
I've had a very odd sort of Christmas over the years because sometimes it was just me and my mum. Like when we were younger, it was me, my mum, and like her parents, and they died when I was quite young. So then it was sort of me, my mum, and her partner, and her partner's family are quite religious, so they would often go to church. I was a church refuser. Here's your rebel story.
That doesn't sound like you at all.
I know, right? No, I was a church refuser. They managed to wrangle me into going to, what's it called? The one at like midnight mass? No, yeah. What's the other one? What's Christingle? Is that just, did I just make that up?
That's during the festive period, but yeah, that's not midnight.
Okay, so midnight mass. Occasionally they could convince me to go to midnight mass, but usually not. And I remember the last year that I went to church, they dragged me to 3 different churches in the morning and I literally lost it. And it was like 1 o'clock before we got home. And so we're not allowed to open any presents before they've been to church. So it was, and then I had to end up going anyway. It was like no presents got opened until like 7 o'clock at night that day. And I was like, this isn't Christmas. Like, we're supposed to be playing board games and getting cashed. Like,
it's always very stressful when it's like, this is not how Christmas is.
No, I remember exactly.
After my granddad had died, my mum, bless her, was like, I don't want to be at home, it would just make me feel sad. Dad's not here. So we went out to a hotel for Christmas and it was the worst experience ever. It was like, we never do this. Like, can we just be at home? Things do not go to plan that happen.
No. So over the last few years, it's changed again because obviously I've been with Chloe for 16 years and we end up cooking Christmas dinner because it happens on the schedule that we want it to happen on. So we cook Christmas dinner and then it's usually quite a quiet affair. Like we sort of open presents around actual lunchtime. But now that we have a kid, it's really difficult because when it's just adults, we tend to only eat Christmas dinner as a meal that day. Whereas when you've got a toddler or a kid who's literally in like growth surges, you have to feed them like every 2 hours. So we have lots of like picky bits and all the rest of it. And then when we're with Chloe's family, it's the board games, the drinking. Everybody's in like, well, everybody dresses up. In fact, what we do with my mum as well, we dress up. We're a dress up family. But then, like when we're with Chloe's family, by the evening, we're all in tracksuits
In your
playing board
company.
games. Yeah, yeah. So that's quite nice. I do have one vital question for you, though.
Yeah.
You've mentioned the Muppets Christmas Carol, but
Mhm.
you've missed a very obvious movie that is very contentious. Die Hard. Is it a Christmas movie or is it not a Christmas
No,
movie? Oh
no,
my
it's not.
God, Christmas movie.
It's a film set at Christmas. That does not make it a Christmas movie.
And
And I
yet
have
it's
another
played.
confession.
Go on.
I've never really watched it.
Oh my goodness gracious me. It's like the movie that is always played on the BBC at Christmas, like
Yeah, not
every
Chicken
year.
Run. I'd rather watch Chicken Run.
Yeah, of course. Like, or what's that lovely Arthur Christmas? That's
Oh,
one of
that's
our
lovely.
favorites. Yeah, we love Arthur Christmas.
I
Um,
could literally watch a festive film a day, like throughout December. I am a Christmas like obsessive. I have a little tiara that says Queen of Christmas on it because
no.
I'm obsessed. And we got like my anniversary, wedding anniversary is on the 21st of December. Because yeah, I just love Christmas. It's
Oh
always
my
been.
goodness. So do you already have a tree up?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we have a rule. Atlas's birthday is on the 30th of November. So we don't do Christmas until after the 30th of November.
That's very sensible.
I
We
feel
try to
like,
implement the same rule because my son's birthday is the 2nd of December. We try to
okay.
implement the same thing, but this year he was very insistent that we put it up. But next year I think I'm going to enforce like, no, you're the child.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
waiting until
exactly.
after your birthday.
So okay, what about Christmas music? Do you play Christmas music in the house? Yeah, I
Yeah,
will
all
as
the time.
well. I'm like a real toss up between like Secret Santa Claus or Mrs. Santa and Total Scrooge. So we don't always have a Christmas tree. I know. I fucking hate it. I fucking hate the mess. It's clutter. It looks messy. The cats try and destroy it. I'm the only person that puts it up and has to take it back down. And I hate packing the Christmas tree away. So yeah, one year we didn't even have a tree and I just but also my mum has a 13.5 foot Christmas tree. Like, why do I need a Christmas tree? Who's gonna compete with that? Nobody can compete with that. So we just like, and also because we quite often go there for Christmas, I'm like, yeah, fuck it. My mum's done all the Christmas decorations. I don't need to. But I do like Christmas music in the house, and I'm not gonna lie, I do like a mince pie. Like I love a mince pie.
You're about to
So
say that we can no longer work together because I hate mince pies. I
no.
know.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
What
Although I
Chris?
have discovered this year, M&S, Marks and Spencer's, are doing chocolate brownie mince pies. So they've got like a chocolate brownie filling, but with the pastry shell. Delicious. Highly recommend. But
Oh,
yeah, I'm not a mince pie girl, which is
wow.
contentious. I
Wow.
know.
That
I know.
that is that is okay. All right. Well, that's probably enough Christmasing on
I could talk
Christmas
about
Day, isn't it?
Christmas all day. So if you want to do just that, that's fine.
Just an episode all about Christmas like
Just us talking about
traditions.
how much we
Yeah.
love Christmas.
Do you still get a stocking?
No.
I do.
You? From Chloe? Oh, from your mum. Oh, that's very sweet. No, my
Isn't
mum wouldn't
it?
do that.
Oh my God.
No.
She has never not done it. I love it. I love it. I'm like
Oh.
a child. I'm like,
Yeah, to be
yay,
fair,
Christmas.
Tom's mum is like that. But they were also, it was a great shock because me and Tom have been together since we were 15. So
Wow.
I remember the first year I went to his house. This was just like you said about the food. It was just a revelation to me because they have like a 3 course breakfast.
What?
Then they have a huge lunch. Then there'll be then the sweets and the cheese and crackers and everything come out later. I don't know how any of them move after all of that.
Oh my God.
So yeah, but she is more of a Queen of Christmas than me. It's her entire personality. She would do
Okay.
everything.
When do you do your Christmas food shop?
Um, this is a bone of contention between me and Tom because I want to do it online. I want to just have it delivered get all organized. But he's very much, no, I'll just go the day before and get everything I need. And that literally brings me out in hives. I can't, oh, Christmas crowds, no.
Yeah. So I go at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, good
I
shout.
wait up and I go at 11 o'clock at night, usually on the 23rd. Occasionally I'll go on the 22nd, but I like it really fresh. I like all the food really, really fresh. So I try and leave it as late as humanly possible. There are some things that I know that you always have to buy: chestnuts and pastry. Pastry you have to buy in advance because it sells out every single time, and I've made that mistake before. But I love, one of my favorite things, I get really pissy. I'm really pissy already because I'm like, I want to put the butcher's meat order in, and like nobody will tell me who's actually coming to Christmas or how many people we need to prep for. I don't even make Christmas dinner. Like, I am the chef in our house. I cook every single day. The only meal that I don't cook is Christmas Day because Chloe
Is this like,
cooks a
is this
roast.
like men on a barbecue? Like they
Yeah.
decide, like the everyone else does the cooking all the rest of the year, and then the minute the barbecue's out, they're like, oh, this is my domain to prep
Yeah.
some food. I'm sure it's
Exactly. But I have to go and organize all the food shop and everything. So I get really pissy if I don't know who's coming. And like, we only buy butcher's meat because Atlas is a prince and won't eat any other meat that's not butcher's meat. So we have to order in advance because otherwise like you can't get it anyway. Anyway, this isn't supposed to be about Christmas. So let's talk about Kickstarter. Oh,
Okay.
everyone's gonna be like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, delete. No, don't delete. Stay. Happy Christmas. All right. Mindset. What we've got a few lessons that I think we both learned, and some that may be a bit more personal, but mindset on Kickstarter. What were your takeaways?
I couldn't believe how drained I was after. I thought I felt very like prepared. We'd done all the things we needed to do. I was very excited. But I just remember both of us the next day were like, I am absolutely exhausted. I feel like I've run a marathon.
Yep.
The come down from that high was ridiculous.
And you're
Um,
talking about the launch day of Kickstarter, aren't
yeah, the
you?
launch day. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just, yeah, I didn't expect to feel so wiped out. I couldn't do anything the following day. I thought I was getting ill. I was like, what's wrong with me? It was just because it was so like the build up and the adrenaline, it all just then, I guess, plummeted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Well,
really strange.
also, we had like a launch party as well, didn't we? And we did a
Yeah,
live and we were all together. So I think we all like fed off of each other's energy, which just like ramped it up as well.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I am, and I, but I know this is my competition. It's like I've run a race, and that day, that launch day, when you hit publish, is the finish line, and or maybe like the first few hours is the finish line, and it's like this prolonged, energetic like high because you're just watching the money roll in, and you're watching the backers go up, and you know you beat the backers from last time, or you beat the money from last time, and it's all very exciting, and it is like the biggest fucking like heroin crack dopamine hit that you've ever had in your entire life. And especially because we I think after like a couple of hours we'd beaten the first Kickstarter, hadn't we?
yeah,
I
yeah,
think it was like 2 hours and we'd beaten
yeah.
the whole of the first Kickstarter,
Yep.
which is such a phenomenal shock. We were like,
It's a
what the
shock to you. I wasn't shocked.
I bloody
That
well
sounds really
was.
big-headed. It wasn't because of anything that I'd done. I just was like, Sasha, your platform and your readership has grown so much since the last one. It's gonna smash it. But yeah, I know you were very shocked because you're very humble. But yeah,
Yeah,
it was yeah,
I
it
was
still was
shocked.
that emotional kind of
Yeah.
roller coaster of like, oh my God.
So, in the vein of looking after yourself or looking after oneself, something like a few takeaway tips would be to schedule any communications that you need to schedule for the following day and maybe even the day after that. And that includes any kind of social media scheduling that you need to do. Try and get it scheduled before launch day for the first 2 or 3 days because, yeah, we were both fucked and
Yeah, and
practically
you need to just
non-communicative.
yeah, and you need to be able to just have that diarised to be like the next day is going to be a bit of a write-off. If do what you need to do to look after yourself and try not to stare at your computer all day to see how it's doing.
Yeah. Well, so another question to you, because obviously you dealt with this much more than me. On day one, can you recall whether or not there was an increase in like customer service queries, sort of questions and comments? Like, because if you have to reserve energy, is that where you need the energy?
Yeah, I would say so. We were fortunate. I think the only things that I remember having to deal with quite quickly were people who were adding on shipping. So we had the policy that we'll ship to anywhere, but we weren't going to, you can't list every country in the world. So if you're somewhere that we haven't listed, contact us and we'll add it on. So we had a couple during the first day of people asking for their countries to be added on. But really, I think if you've got your frequently asked questions on the campaign and your campaign's fairly robust, we didn't seem to have many questions throughout the campaign, which was good. But agreed, if you're trying to reserve your energy, then reserve it for that, because being communicative and responsive just gives people that confidence in you as a creator that you are going to fulfill this campaign you're promising.
Okay, so that's launch day. For me, finish day doesn't isn't as big of a thing in my memory. I actually, so we sort of wrote down final day, and I can't really remember the final day. I don't
I think
really.
it's a bit of, yeah, it's a bit of an anticlimactic thing, I think, because the campaign, I think it's fairly widely known for anyone who uses Kickstarter or runs Kickstarters that the first 24 hours, 48 hours are where you're getting the bulk of your backers. And then there's a saggy middle, as everyone calls it, and it does slow down and you get another little burst towards the end, but it isn't anywhere near as, you're not getting those numbers rolling in, rolling in, rolling in. So it does feel a little bit different. And I think the main thing that I just remember was the second that it stopped, we then had people messaging us saying,
Yeah.
is it too late? Oh no. And then having to make that decision about, how do we handle this now? Because we've got that decision to make. But yeah, in terms of energy and draining, it was fine once we got towards the end of the campaign. It just become like a part of the process of things we were doing day to day by that point.
Yeah, I definitely remember like the last 2 hours. The first campaign didn't have any other backers in the last hour, but this campaign we saw quite a few come in, even one in the last 5 minutes. So I felt I was quite distracted by that on
Yeah,
that
I
day. I
remember
do
that.
remember being quite distracted, but energetically it wasn't as bad, I don't think. Um, but yeah,
Which
like
does
you,
sort of lead to the point I know we've talked about, but you were in the middle of finishing the last book when we were
oh
running
my
the Kickstarter,
God.
which it's just so distracting. I had done the same thing and made the same mistake with my own campaign. I was trying to finish the book whilst it was running, and it's just a nightmare. You're so distracted from the thing you should be doing, which is the writing, because there's just so many things you can distract yourself with with the
Yeah.
Kickstarter. And writing's hard, so it's easy to procrastinate doing something else. And yeah, I know that was difficult for you as well.
Yeah, it was. I think that's a really good point. One of my mindset things is related to that, but also related to the add-ons and the stretch goals and things. I realized that competition for my competition, which is obviously at number one, so it's a huge part of like my personality and how I function day to day. The race is really the race finishes at the end of the first 24 hours, because you know roughly where you're going to end up after that first 24 hours. It's quite predictable in terms of performance. And so for me, if that's the end of the race, that means I don't really want to do any other work at the end of it, right? So, and that sounds terrible because, there's lots of work to be done after that bit, and there is, and I don't mind doing the fulfillment. That bit I find exciting. The signing the books, the organizing the printing, paying for the printing. Like that's all exciting. But by work, I mean writing. Trying to do creative work after a campaign is finished in my competition brain is excruciating. I had to write two like smutterlogs and narrate two of them. And that was really, really tough on me because I had already shut down that part. Also, I'd shut down that part of my brain in terms of I'd left that world and I was looking at, architecting now. I'm in this world and that's where I am. And so I didn't want to have to go back. So that's been a real lesson for me about making sure that any bonus content, even if we don't hit it as a stretch goal, it's already written. And then if I've written it and we don't hit it as a stretch goal, oh well, it then becomes a product I can sell on Shopify. But yeah, that was like a big one for me, is to not be writing a book that is in this Kickstarter whilst the Kickstarter is running. It is so stressful because the other bit of this is there's a lot of people looking and a lot of people watching at that point, and they know where you are in your progress. And yeah, I just can't do it. It's too much. So on the Kickstarter, how many decisions do you think we have to make?
I don't even think you could put a number on it. It's hundreds of decisions from the big ones to the small ones. And it's one of those things that, although I'm kind of largely managing the sort of project aspect of it, there are things that you have to decide because it's your baby. So I'm then having to come to you with, how about this? What, would you like this option or this option? What do you think about this? And there are just so many decisions, and you sort of, I think, are lulled into this false sense of security that once the campaign's done, the decisions end, but they don't. There's just different decisions to make. I know that you got really where particularly when you're writing as well, you don't want to have to be making those decisions. Your brain is occupied in a creative sphere. You don't then need to be pulled out of it to make logistical decisions. So I don't know that there's an easy way of solving that other than just having done it and the level of decisions that there are, trying to get ahead of it a little bit.
I think the only thing that lowers that decision that decision fatigue is when you have some kind of standardization to what you're delivering on Kickstarter. So we know we're going to have going forward, it's always going to be sprayed edges. It's always going to be foiling. It's always going to be a dust jacket with a slightly different cover than what's on the case. So that's removed like 4 decisions or whatever it is. There's other things like we know we're always going to have a smutty box. Therefore, the decisions are the sex toys, and actually we can make some of those decisions even before I write the book because we can write them into the story, which then automatically means, okay, this is what goes in the box. So I think there are some levels of standardization, but I do think this is, if you do this kind of project work, that you just have to accept that there are going to be huge amounts of decisions. One thing that I really appreciated was that we would batch stuff. So you'd come with a whole bunch of decisions all in one go, and then I'd kind of expend all of that energy, and then I wouldn't have to do it during the creative bit. The worst bit for me is just having to make decisions whilst I'm editing. My strengths coach has actually said I'm not allowed to make any decision, even down to do all the meal prep at the weekend and choose all your clothes on a weekend so that you're not having to make any decisions, because I get intense decision fatigue when I'm editing.
I think that's also when you're as a mum and as a woman, we are generally juggling thousands of things in our brain at once at any time. So then when you're doing something as intense as editing, where you're making minute decisions with every sentence that you're working on, to then have any more, I can understand that. So yeah, that's just for us to make sure we don't clash our schedules with you editing at the point when we're trying to do this.
Yeah. Oh goodness. I don't think there are any other mindset things, are there? Not any other.
I don't think so.
takers?
I think that was pretty much everything we talked about. I will say
Okay.
the only other thing I was just going to mention, this wasn't you, but I know when we were talking about make sure the book's written, that is particularly pertinent, I think, if don't do a Kickstarter if you haven't started the book or if you haven't written the book at all, because the amount of pressure that you're then under from all these people that have backed your campaign to actually write this book that you haven't even started is just immense. And that is generally kind of a word of wisdom on Kickstarters to have the book finished. If it's all
And
possible.
so much so. Yeah, so much so that we have now shifted our schedule. That's why we're doing the Girl Games one next, because it gives me the time I need to have written both of the duets, both of the books in the duet for the Architecty duology before we then run that Kickstarter later in the year next year. So yeah, I completely agree. That pressure was fucked, frankly.
Never again.
Never again. Okay, marketing. What's like your one die-hard, hardcore marketing thing?
I think that I learned and that I was surprised by was how much saturation you kind of need to give people for it to make an impact. I think we've both realized that we could have hit it so much harder with the amount of marketing that we were doing, because there's almost this bit of you that's like, oh, you don't want to overdo it. I don't want people to get fed up with seeing, you pushing something. But there's that classic marketing thing of people need to see something 3 times before they'll even kind of register it. And
Yeah.
we all know that the algorithms on social media are a bit funky sometimes and people don't always see stuff. So there is no harm in pushing it, quite hard and saying every day, here's something that you might not have seen. Here's another reason why you want to look at this. And the artwork. We can talk about that separately. But yeah, I think how much we can really push the marketing was my biggest takeaway from it.
Yeah, I've been watching a couple of really big names who are running big Kickstarters at the moment, and they're literally posting every single day a different iteration of information about the Kickstarter. One thing for me on that is this time, I don't think I even mentioned it on TikTok. So that was like a completely untapped resource. And part of that was the fact that I was in train trying to finish the book that we were also running for the campaign. And so I had no capacity to create TikToks for a thing that I was still trying to create, if that makes sense. So next time, I definitely feel like we need to schedule out like the what of what is going on TikTok, and then I can do that. And then the other part of that is we had such a fuck up with the proofs. We didn't have the right proofs, and we didn't have like the contents of the proofs for the final book because I hadn't written it. So it was actually also really hard to be like, oh yeah, so look at this book, except it's exactly the same as book two. So we couldn't really do any look insides for that either, which was really hard. But yeah, I definitely feel like I want to maximize TikTok next time. And yes, I agree. And on the you can't post enough and you can't saturate enough, I think that's the same for education.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, there's so many people that have no idea what Kickstarter is. I think when you're familiar with the platform, you kind of take it for granted that oh,
Yeah,
everyone must have heard of Kickstarter or have used it. People haven't. The percentage of people that were first-time backers from your campaign was really
huge
high.
actually. Yeah.
So we were bringing a lot of people to the platform, and there may have been even more if people had understood a bit more about what it was and what they were getting and why it was different to just buying the books on your website.
Yeah.
So, absolutely, I think education and using the functions that you have on social media, like using your Instagram highlights to be able to say, this is where all the information is if you need to look back and find out anything, this is us walking you through how to do a pledge, because it's things like that that can trip people up, and you
Yeah.
don't want to give people any barriers to not back your campaign. And that's one thing that I think you can remove quite easily just by keep talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. Um, yeah, and not just once in the campaign period either, but multiple times running up to it. Like that was our biggest FAQ is like how do I pledge? What is Kickstarter? Like how do I get the special editions? How do I get them? Well,
Yeah.
it's pretty basic. So yeah, there was a lot of that. Okay, let's talk about the artwork.
Yeah.
Yes. So
That was yeah, go for
yeah,
it.
well, I was just going to say, I did slow reveals during the first campaign, and I would cover up all the important bits. And even when it was just the sketches, people went wild. And I would always see a boost in pledges after I had kind of posted about the artwork. What's kind of your
Yeah, well, that's what happened this time. We had a saggy middle, and because we had this is probably another point of things that are just to think about going forward, and we are doing this time. But we had artists who were working on the art while we were doing the campaign. So we didn't have, when it first launched, we didn't have a huge amount that we could share with anyone, even sketches really. So we were just kind of saying, this is the kind of thing you're going to get. But as the campaign went on, we did start to have more sketches and more things we could share. So the second we did that, things went bananas. People went absolutely crazy for it, because it is hard to imagine. We're saying there's going to be all this steamy artwork, but without having any sort of idea about what it looks like, it makes it harder for people. And I found it fascinating because it was people, not only people adjusting their pledges to get these things now, increasing their pledges so they would get the artwork, but people who must have been watching the campaign and thinking about backing it, because we had a flurry of new people as well that were then like, oh, actually, yeah, that's now sold it to me. If that's what's going to be included, I'm now doing that.
yeah, and I think I think it really depends on what you're doing the Kickstarter for. So, like the first time I did the Kickstarter, I did it because I couldn't afford the art and I wanted to create the product. So I was using Kickstarter for the purpose it was created for. I was using it as a crowdfunding platform in order to produce a product, which I then put through production and sent out to everybody. This second Kickstarter, that we were kind of in that middle phase where I'd sort of paid up front for the art, or I'd sort of paid half of the art, and and so we were then like finishing off the Kickstarter project so everybody could like get the rest of their collection. But it was then more about giving back to the community. And then for this next one that we're doing, everything's paid for up front. So all of the artwork is going to be done and dusted before we even start, which means we're no longer using Kickstarter as its original intended purpose, if that makes sense. We are then doing this like, yes, okay, to make money, but also because we want to put this exciting product into the market. And we know this is the best mechanism for doing that, or at
Yeah,
least
and
doing
you
it
wouldn't,
initially.
and you wouldn't be able to invest all this money in the art and the new covers and all those kind of things if you knew you weren't going to have that. Well, obviously we don't know, but we're hopeful from your track records in the past of your Kickstarters that we are going to cover all those costs from doing the
Yeah.
next campaign. Whereas
Yeah.
you
So
wouldn't, yeah, if you were just going to be selling them on your website, you wouldn't be paying, all this money up front on the sort of hope that, oh, maybe these will sell over the next, few years. It's a huge investment, but it's one that, we can feel fairly confident will be returned.
So let's talk about that. Because before I did the first one, I think I probably spent £300. So I think I'd paid for one sketch and I had to pay for the cover, the foiling thing to be done, and I had to pay for the proof copy of it. And I think I'd paid for something else, or maybe like getting a sample of different products. So I had to pay for that. So I didn't invest a huge amount because I didn't have a huge amount of money to invest. Um, but then on the second one, do you have any idea what we did before we went live?
The amount of money we spent before we went live. Hang on. Let me get my spreadsheet out.
And because then we can talk about how much we've already spent for this next one, because it is a lot of money.
Money.
So much
Yeah,
money.
so let's just, to be fair, this one, it still wasn't a huge amount of money because we weren't doing anything new with the covers, because the way that we ran that campaign was that they were foiled covers of your existing ones. So we weren't having to pay a designer to do new cover design. It was
We
the
paid
artwork.
for we paid for a photo shoot.
We did. We paid for a photo shoot and we paid for the art was paid up front, and your things like stickers, those were paid for up front.
So it's probably about 1,500.
Yeah, about 1,500 when you've got charged, yeah, when you've paid for all the art. But
Okay,
then
cool.
when
So
you
this
pick it up,
latest one, for listeners, this Kickstarter campaign is probably going live in late February, March time, early March.
yeah, we're looking at so far about £4,000.
Fucking hell. Right. Well, that does mean that we need a slightly
Higher target this
a
time.
higher
Yeah.
target this time, don't we? But yeah, but that is the difference. We've now kind of done everything up front. Um, maybe this is no, I'm going to talk about that in a different section. But yeah, so this kind of gives you an idea of the scale at which you can grow, but also the amount that you can pre-organize and pre-prepare. And what this is also doing is going back to that mindset thing about me not enjoying doing stuff after the campaign. Being able to put that investment in means that we are front loading all of the work.
Yeah, and it feels so nice to be able to go, actually, we've got all the artwork done, the cover artwork done. We are ordering a proof, and this is actually what it's going to look like. There isn't anything we've got to change. We
Yeah.
haven't got to get another copy done or tweak something because we need to change the spine size. We haven't got this sort of slight stress and unease of, oh no, is it going to be okay because we had to tweak something between the sets of proofs. It feels really nice to just to have, as you said, front loaded all of that. And what we're doing is going to be the finished article, which, yeah, feels really good.
Yeah, and I think the other thing we were scrambling hardcore with proofs and products because I hadn't finished book 3, but also we'd ordered proofs and they'd gone to the photographer and then they weren't the right proofs and it didn't, we didn't check quickly enough, and then trying to get the proofs turned around in time was really fucking difficult. And so I felt like we were under a lot of time pressure, whereas we are just about to order proofs, aren't we?
They're already in progress. Yeah, they're
Are
already
they?
on their way to you. Yeah.
No.
I ordered them about a month ago. I ordered them when you were in Vegas.
Did you? Wait, which one? Are these the ones from Book Vault?
Yeah,
Ah, okay. So yeah, we also need proofs from other people though, right?
we do. But these were that's what they're going to look like.
Yeah.
They've got all the bells and whistles and everything that we wanted on them. And it's
Apart from
just
the
to
art.
hold them too. Yeah, okay, all right, maybe not all, but enough for us to be able to look at
Yeah,
it and be like, actually, this is going to be a really beautiful product.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that it will be, yeah, it's exciting.
Okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit about the saggy middle. I suppose we've talked about kind of the fact that we did reveal artwork. One thing that I will say is it is really difficult to reveal artwork on social media. You have to cover things. You can kind of hint at and reveal some bits, and but actually, I think driving people to Kickstarter in order to see the reveals isn't a bad thing anyway. It keeps the artwork a little bit more exclusive. Like that's one thing I've never really done is I've never really shared any of the artwork that we have had done on social media. I have always kept it all quite private because I think once you share it on social media, anyone can just screenshot and download and do whatever they want with it. So I do try quite hard to keep that artwork like inside the Kickstarter only. That said, we will be doing art packs and things from the website going forward. But yeah, that was one thing we did. What were some of the other things that we did?
We looked at our add-ons. It was related to the artwork as well, but we tried something that was perhaps a little bit sneaky, but we revealed a sketch of an art print that was a really good one, and said, oh, actually, this is only going to be available in the very top tier where someone was buying the full bells and whistles, really expensive box package, or if you add on the full art pack. And that gave us such a boost because it was a really good, even from a sketch, everyone could tell it was going to be awesome. And I guess it also had the element of it was a scene from a book they hadn't yet read. That was that anticipation of, oh, this is coming in this book. Excellent.
Yeah.
And that gave us a huge boost. We had so many people, the add on that art pack just to get that one book. That gave us a real boost in the middle of the campaign.
Was that the flash goal or was the flash goal something else?
So we had a flash goal that was one that everyone was getting anyway. But then we did. It was a little bit sneaky because we were already getting the artwork done, but we were giving it as a bonus print for the very top tier. So it was something that we'd already got in the works, but it just gave people that incentive to pledge and to add something extra on, which did give us a big boost.
Okay, so last couple of bits then. Campaign swaps. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, they didn't work for us.
No.
We tried a few. I think there's a couple of factors at play. One, and I'll say this because Sasha is too humble to say this, but she has a big platform. So a lot of the people that were approaching us to do campaign swaps, obviously more than happy to help and to, support the community of, authors and Sapphic authors. And we want to help people. It wasn't about that, but we got nothing from doing the swaps other than helping other people, but in terms of our campaign it didn't make any difference.
I don't think we even got a single backer, did we?
We didn't get a single one, no. And there's the other sort of side to it is that we're not, this is Sapphic spicy romance we've got a fantastic niche. There's a really profitable niche clearly, but there obviously are many more straight books on the Kickstarter platform. So if you're trying to swap with people who are, again, they might be doing a spicy campaign, but are their readers going to be the same as our readers? Possibly not. And unfortunately, at the moment, there still aren't as many Sapphic campaigns. So we did have a narrower market of people that we could genuinely do a good swap with.
Yeah.
It was great to feel like there were a couple of Sapphic campaigns we swapped with. And we saw that gave a particular campaign a huge boost from when you shared it on your Instagram. And
oh yeah, I loved that. I loved
that was
that
just
fact
really,
did
really
that.
nice.
Yeah, I was
Really,
so
really
happy.
nice.
I backed
Really,
that
really
one as
great.
well. I can't wait to
Yeah,
get it.
I know it looks amazing. That cover, I was like, yes.
I know, right? I was like, one click, I want it.
Yeah, immediately in the
Yeah.
basket. But yeah, in terms of actually for our marketing and for us, it didn't work. Our audience size, thankfully, is too big for those campaign swaps to do anything for us. So I think going forward, it would be the case if we would look for Sapphic campaigns that we can support and share. And any queer campaigns, anything from the within the community, share those and help give those campaigns a boost. But for actually our for hoping that we'd get anything from it, it's unlikely.
Yeah. Okay. So the first campaign I did, I was running that at the same time as the launch of this first book. I wouldn't do that again. That was the first thing. I think everybody knows I wouldn't do that again. But the one upside of doing that is that it meant that I had a street team. And that's not something that we utilized this time. And it is something that I think we should think about because I do feel like having other people shouting about the campaign is a really good idea. So I do think that is something we are going to look at for the Kickstarter, for the Girl Games Kickstarter. And I am almost tempted to, and I might talk to you about this afterwards, but potentially do a PR spin and potentially invest in 2 or 3 people that we maybe send physical copies. If we do if we're going to do a big enough print run, it will be cost effective to maybe send a couple of copies out so people have stuff to show. But I don't know. I mean, we need to look at the costs of that because we've already invested 4 fucking thousand pounds in this campaign. And right now we do not have £4,000 worth of followers, which is my next point. So pre-launch, let's talk about pre-launch.
Yeah, we had a good. It was a good run up last time. The pre-launch got us into a fantastic position, I think.
718.
Yeah, it smashed it. That was amazing. And considering they say generally, I think it's roughly something like 10% of your followers, between 10 and 20% of your pre-launch followers then like convert. That was way more for us. You know, our stats were really, really positive. People that followed the campaign wanted it, which was great. And I think the biggest thing that I took away from that is why should people follow it? What's the benefit? Because all they are doing is when you follow a campaign in pre-launch, it just means when the campaign goes live, you get an email. So what we need to give people an incentive to do that. If they don't already have a Kickstarter account, they have to go and set one up in order to follow it. So it is a bit of an ask. So I think that's just clarified for me that we need a really good incentive for people to do that.
Well, and one of the incentives was the fact that we had a limited tier.
We did.
So
yeah.
we had three annotated copies, and that was it. So if you didn't follow, the chances of you getting one of those, and those annotated copy ones went in seconds.
They went instantly.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing we can really push this time. Be like, well, last time, you know, these kind of things went in. I know we're not going to do annotated again.
Because, no, we are not.
But we can have things that are number limited and time limited and slightly cheaper if you back quickly. Because it not only the thing with the pre-launch, it's not just about our egos being like, we want to have as many followers as possible. It literally helps you get boosted within the Kickstarter platform. You get put into newsletters, you get shown up on the homepage, you're more likely to get a Project We Love badge, all of those things. It makes your campaign visible and just lets people find you. There are so many Kickstarters that you don't even know exist because you have to scroll through hundreds of pages of campaigns in order to find them. So the more people that are backing it, the more it tells Kickstarter, actually, this is something people are really interested in, and it will bring people to you on its own. So
yeah, 100%. And you can guesstimate-ish what you're going to earn. So the stats were a little bit out for this last one, but I do wonder if that's because that we did have quite high tiers. But hopefully this next one will be able to lower some of the pricing. But the first one, I think I had 289 followers and made 26 grand. So it's definitely a 10 figure. What is it? 100% higher? 289? Yeah, no. Yeah, 100% higher. So I'm like, if it was 260 followers and you made 26 grand, it's almost like that, right? You know, and I've seen that a lot, like the number of followers can predict. I think it's for every 100 followers, it's roughly 10 grand. I think that's what they say you're predicted to make roughly. So, yeah. So we've got a target for figures this time. Let's not tell anyone.
They'll probably be able to guess considering the number you've just said.
Yeah. It's fine. Okay. All right. Let's go on to the last big one, which is logistics. Okay. My biggest fuck up with Kickstarter is that I said that these books were exclusive to Kickstarter and you'd never be able to get them anywhere else ever again, which has completely shot me in the foot in terms of utilizing my IP. So One of the things I really enjoy doing is iterating the IP, making sure it's available in all of the different options, all of the different ways. And I can't do that with this special edition book. So we are going to have to, obviously, we are going to do something so that we can have it as available, but we've got to iterate what we've already done, which is a bit of a pain, if I'm perfectly honest. So that would be my big thing. I mean, obviously, there is a huge benefit to making something exclusive on Kickstarter because it gives people a huge reason to back it. But it depends on what your motivations are, right? If your motivation is to, really focus on Kickstarter as an integral part of your business model, or if you just want to create something as a one-off, fine. But if you are in this for the long run and you want to maximize the use of your IP, I would be very careful over that phrasing. We now have to go away and spend more money on iterating this book into a slightly different version of a special edition so that we can then sell it on Shopify so that I don't break a promise that I made to people on a Kickstarter, a year ago when I didn't realize what was going to happen. So that would be my best advice to you, is to really, really think about whether or not you want to restrict yourself to saying something's exclusive to Kickstarter.
Yeah, and there are things you can do like, but obviously we don't necessarily want to do iterations, but you could say, it's only ever going to be available at this price here. If you then put it on your website, you sell it elsewhere, it's going to be X amount more. So you don't have to, you can still let people feel like they're getting something that's, either at a better price or that is a bit more exclusive, rather than it actually being, you can only get it on this platform.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a really minor one that I've sort of alluded to already, so I'm just going to whistle through this one. The money that we spend on having professional photographs taken is the best money that we spend. We use those photographs on our social media. We use them as store photos on the Shopify website. And of course, we use them in the Kickstarter story. And I swear that no. The whole story that you create on Kickstarter is fucking stunning. All of the graphics are beautiful. But I feel like having beautiful photos of the books really, really helps. It's like a dress window for you. That's what the Kickstarter story page is. That said, this comes back to what we were saying earlier about not running a Kickstarter before you have a finished product. The pressure that we were under, I had to spend a fortune in special edition, not in special delivery postage to get things there overnight. I had to give up my copies. I was left with no copies of certain books because I had to send them to the photographer, and that was completely on me because we just didn't have finished.
You. I'm not gonna. Well, yes, the books weren't finished, but that was a printing error that was not on you. The wrong things were printed and sent to the photographer, which was neither of our faults. That was the printers, unfortunately. But it's those things you don't think about. You just kind of assume that everyone else is going to do their bit, and if things go wrong, you're then like, we've now got a gap in the timeline.
Yeah, exactly. And we did not leave enough time for that, for any slippage. And that was the big thing for me, is like, it's almost like we're on a traditional publishing. And this is why the goal next year is for me to get ahead so that we do have that kind of slippage time in the project planning, basically. Okay, now that we have run a Kickstarter with over 1,000 books, and in fact, it's very close to 1,200 books that we need printing. How are we feeling about that? What are some of the logistical issues that we're coming across?
Sick. I feel sick.
Yeah.
The thought of packaging all of those, I know, like, we're going to have, a lot of people to help. It's just a huge, huge thing. And yes, fulfillment companies are there's a cost involved, but I think if you can figure out what that cost is and work it into your campaign costs, I think that would be, when you get to this kind of scale. Obviously, when you're doing a smaller campaign, if you can fulfill it from your kitchen table, that's fantastic. But once things start to get bigger, and particularly if you don't have a team of people to help you, how can you physically do all of this? It would take you weeks, and that is then taking away from your writing time and whatever else you're doing for your next project. So yeah, I think
for me, the trigger was 1,000 books. When we went over 1,000 books needing to be printed, that was the alert button for me to go, we can't do that. We can't fulfill. I mean, we are going to fulfill this, but this is the last time we're fulfilling it. It is unrealistic to do that, I think. So, I mean, the other thing about that is that we are now looking at how many books, because obviously, next time we're not going to be saying it's exclusive too. We can actually not just print 1,000 but print 2,000, and the economies of scale on that are significant. And so at that point we'll then be able to either do like in-person events with the books, or we'll be able to run them off Shopify. So that again is another thing that you have to think about: production, planning, timelines, having longer timelines, and also looking at things like, well, are there going to be tariffs that come in on China? If you're doing printing, can you get not safe for work printing in China? Or, do you have to go with a printer in the UK? Yeah, and then doing fulfillment, research as well. So that's kind of where we are at. So I don't suppose we've got any advice really on that, because we're still getting quotes from printers. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty scary, because we're talking about, I would say, between 12 and 15,000 pounds printing this print on demand bespoke special edition books, whereas we can get 12,000 books printed for about the same price. So it's a huge difference. Maybe that's slightly too many. I think we still need to wait for the quote, but I'm sure somebody quoted me. So we probably get like 8,000 books printed for the same price. So it's really worth thinking about whether or not instead of having to spend 23 grand, can you just spend 15 and get them printed in a bigger batch, right? But that's a lesson learned for us, is forward thinking and maybe anticipating success. I don't know, I find that really difficult to do, is to anticipate that something's going to do really well. But financially, that now makes sense to do that, and to think, well, if you can afford to do a print run of slightly more books, then yeah, because I was
just going to say, most printers, a minimum print run is 250 books. So that sounds a little bit more achievable potentially if you're thinking, oh, I could sell these in events or on my website.
Yeah.
You're not looking at having, thousands of books hanging around for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so that's the thing why we're looking at fulfillment options now, because if we do a print run of 2,000 copies per book, where the fuck are we going to put them?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like a totally different business model. Again, it's like a change in business model again. So, okay. Oh yeah, one last thing. So depending on what you want to do moving forward, one of the things that we are thinking about is like merch and stuff. So it's just worth thinking about potentially ordering more items than you need just for the Kickstarter, so that you've got spares and so that you're utilizing the economies of scale there as well. And even things like stickers, we overorder stickers so that we've got spares for events or Shopify, etc., etc. Okay, I think that's probably it, isn't it? I don't know if you've got any last kind of tips or advice, or maybe we should tell people to go follow our Kickstarter.
I think we should. I think that's the best way to end.
Yeah,
we need to hit this target we're alluding to.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, go and follow the Kickstarter. That you'll be able to find that at rubyroad.co.uk/Girl Games Kickstarter, and I'll make sure that link is in the show notes as well. And happy Christmas, everybody!
Merry Christmas.
Unwrapping your gifts and your goodies. Don't get too pissed, or maybe do. And we will see you in the new year.
Don't forget to tune in and subscribe on your podcatcher. And when you have a moment, please leave a review.